All right, Part 2, Chapter 5, Direct and Circumstantial Evidence, Slide 13, Character General. Defendant's character has to be raised by the defense first. Cross-examination is critical. Page 128. Look at the examples of evidence on defendant's character in general. Read that. Specific character traits are often raised relating to acts of violence or honesty. Shows acts in conformity with that trait raised by the defense or prosecution. See page 129 at the top, examples of evidence of specific character traits of the defendant. Character of victim, raised by either side, often related to violence or truthfulness. And also see page 129 at the bottom, examples of relevant character traits of the victim. Slide 16, past acts of evidence, identity. Admitted to show past crimes are part of the pattern, modus operandi. This seeks to identify current crime with past acts. Bottom of page 130. Circumstantial evidence is most commonly used in this way when an eyewitness claims that he or she saw the defendant commit the crime, but the defendant claims it's a case of mistaken identity. And top of page 131, read the examples of other acts of evidence used to prove identity. Top of page 130, other acts of evidence include a variety of situations in which prior actions of the defendant are relevant to the current case. Habit or custom. It is more specific than general character, often used to show behavior. Evidence is admitted to show acted or did not act in conformity with past behavior. And top of page 131, habit or custom. The fact that the defendant had a habit or custom of doing something can be used to infer that he or she did it when the current crime was committed. Slide 17, past acts of evidence, lack of accident. Prosecution seeks to show past acts similar to the current crime, thus showing it was not an accident. Page 132, lack of accident. In some cases, the defendant admits doing the criminal act but claims it was done accidentally. In these situations, the defendant's prior acts can show the current crime is not an accident. An example would be Drew Peterson. 2 of his wives accidentally drowned in the bathtub. No, the jury finally just convicted him of murder. Prior false claims. Opposing sides usually use it to discredit a witness. It has the greatest impact if past act was fraud or perjury. Top of page 133 talks about that if you want to read through that. Slide 18, offers to plead guilty. Juries are not told of plea negotiations. The rationale behind that, parties need to negotiate in secret, and if negotiations are not in secret, many parties would hesitate to negotiate because it appears like they're guilty. Content of discussion may be admissible only in rare cases. If subsequently one party changes their testimony, there's accusations of perjury if one side fails to follow through on the team's terms of the plea bargain. Slide 19, circumstantial evidence, the victim. It's typically offered to prove an actual crime occurred. Top of page 134. Under circumstantial evidence involving the victim's injuries can provide circumstantial evidence that a crime occurred. This usually requires testimony of an expert witness to explain that the injuries are inconsistent with the defense's theory of the case. Example, parents frequently claim that an abused child was injured accidentally. An expert can testify that the x-rays show broken bones that were at different stages of healing. This is consistent with the battered child syndrome and indicates there were multiple violent attacks on the child. Some possible symptoms or illnesses: rape trauma syndrome, battered women syndrome, post-traumatic stress syndrome. Bottom of page 134, just before the last paragraph. The abused child is frequently very loving and protective toward the abusive parent. Jurors might conclude that this is a sign that the parent is a loving parent, while the behavior may be an attempt to prevent future abuse by the child. Top of page 135. Rape trauma syndrome is used by the prosecution to overcome stereotypes of how victims react after being raped. Symptoms frequently include withdrawal from the external world, sleep disorders, exaggerated startle responses, guilt, memory impairment, difficulty concentrating, and avoidance of stimuli that might make the victim recall the rape. Some young rape victims might giggle, not knowing how to express their emotions. bottom of the paragraph just below that, the battered women may accept abuse for years, downplay episodes of violence, defend the abuser by claiming he was justified in beating her, rarely report abuse to the family or the police, and pass up chances to flee until some event causes them to strike back and kill. Slide 21, rape shield laws. In the past, rape victims' sexual behavior was examined in court. Victims therefore hesitated to come forth with accusations of rape. Gradually, all states placed limits on what questions can be asked of a rape victim. Slide 22, the Federal Rules of Evidence 412 is the federal rape shield. Makes sexual history of the victim generally inadmissible. Exceptions: evidence that another party committed the rape, evidence of consent to a sexual act, evidence which, if excluded, would violate the defendant's constitutional right. And that's the end of Chapter 5.